Hi, my name is Catherine Yohmi, aka Yohmi, author of the Eat Yourself Cool trilogy. Welcome to the very second episode of Yohmi's Kitchen. Last week, I highlighted how all the common pharmaceutical medications for sickle cell anemia are simply synthetic, toxic versions of everyday natural foods. Today, I'm going to be highlighting how procedures such as bone marrow/stem cell transplant, pharmaceutical gene therapy, and blood transfusions are completely unnecessary for people who were born with the sickle cell gene. So what is bone marrow? Well, bone marrow is the soft fatty tissue which is found inside bones. It's mainly found inside the long bones of the arms and legs, and its job is to produce red blood cells, white blood cells, and clot-forming compounds known as platelets. A bone marrow stem transplant procedure is a procedure which involves replacing unhealthy or damaged bone marrow with healthy bone marrow stem cells. However, it's important to note not only the risky and traumatic nature of this procedure, but also that restoring unhealthy or damaged bone marrow to full health naturally is ridiculously easy. Pharmaceutical gene therapy is a procedure which involves inserting genes into cells in order to replace missing or defective genes so as to correct genetic disorders. However, it's important to note that the sickle cell gene is not a defective gene, and neither do people with the sickle cell gene have a genetic disorder. Therefore, this procedure is completely unnecessary. And in fact, it's also important to note that the behavior of the sickle cell anti-malaria gene can be modified and is hugely dependent on epigenetic factors such as diet and lifestyle.
So diet and lifestyle is the key to disease prevention and or healing. Irrespective of your genotype, it is important to find out the root cause of the disease in question, which is generally an overload of pharmaceutical medications, toxins such as heavy metals and junk food, and also severe malnutrition. Thankfully, restoring the bone marrow to excellent health is ridiculously easy, but it does depend on very specific nutrients. For example, vitamin A, vitamin B6, vitamin B9, vitamin C, vitamin D, iron, and protein. So let's have a look at what all those nutrients do. Vitamin A, vitamin B6, vitamin B9, and vitamin C and vitamin D, they all assist the bone marrow in maintaining and producing white blood cells. I got that the wrong way around. Okay, so they assist the bone marrow in producing and maintaining white blood cells. Vitamin B6 and vitamin B9 are needed by the bone marrow to produce red blood cells. And vitamin B6 is also required by the bone marrow to form hemoglobin. Iron is needed by the bone marrow for the iron in order to produce the iron-containing red blood cells, which carry oxygen to every part of the human body, and protein is needed in order to sustain the bone marrow as well as other tissues in the human body. So let's have a look at what those food nutrients look like. But before we do, so it's important to note that these nutrients protect other immune organs of the body, such as the brain, the thymus, the spleen, the tonsils, and the skin. And it's also important to note that keeping the bone marrow healthy also removes the need for blood transfusions. Simple as that, huh? So let's have a look at what those food nutrients look like.
So here we have all the nutrients, the vitamin A, B, C, D, iron, and protein. So take a good look at these nutrients. Vitamin C with the citrus fruits as well, very important. And most of these fruits, spinach and kale, bananas, they do contain vitamin C as well. You can see the berries and the grapes and the strawberries as well. Vitamin C, interestingly, is a heavy metal chelator. So Vitamin C removes heavy metals from the body, as well as coriander, as I mentioned last week, and parsley. And as I mentioned last week, the difference between coriander and parsley is that coriander is able to pass the blood-brain barrier in order to remove the heavy metals. And all these nutrients also look after the other important immune organs, such as the brain, the thymus, the spleen, the tonsils, and the skin. And you can also see I have the organic sea salt here again, and if I did mention last week, please make sure that the only ingredient on your salt is salt. And salt has over 80 minerals. Proper salt like this has over 80 minerals, which are crucial to the proper functioning of the human body. This type of salt will not give you heart disease or high blood pressure or anything like that. In fact, it will help to regulate blood pressure and blood sugar and everything. Also, last week when I took you into my kitchen cupboards, I didn't mention this little baby here. Now, this is, inside here is organic turpentine. It doesn't usually come in this bottle, but I'd run out, and so one of my sisters poured some into this bottle for me. As I mentioned last week, you do never have to take antibiotics just because you were born with a sickle cell anti-malaria gene. Organic turpentine is a fantastic alternative, can't speak today, fantastic alternative to antibiotics, and I'll explain more about this next week. If you can't wait until then, you can refer to the Eat Yourself Cool Book 2. And once again, I have organic olive oil here, which is also good, as I mentioned last week. It enhances brain function, looks after the skin, looks after the bones. All these things all these nutrients rather look after the skin and bones and everything like that. And I'm going to take some olive oil actually, because I haven't had any today, so I'm going to take some. Okay, just like last week I didn't breathe as I was drinking that olive oil. Because if I did, I'd probably heat. So today I'm going to show you into my fridge. Last week it was my kitchen cupboards. So I'm showing you into my fridge so that you can see that inside this fridge there's absolutely no junk, no fizzy drinks, no flavoured water, no Coke, no Fanta, no dairy, no meat or fish because I can't source organic meat here, no fish because I can't source fish that has actually been caught from the sea. I'm not sure of its source. Got organic tomatoes here, some cherries and spinach. Just take a quick look through. Some more okra in there. If you look down here, you'll see plantain, more kale, more grapes, some berries, whoops, carrots, onions, so full of quercetin and other powerful antioxidants, antibacterial as well, cabbage as well, fantastic, antibacterial. What else do we have in here? Spinach, more spinach, lots of spinach. Parsley in here as well. What else do we have here? We have some fresh mint. Oh no, that's parsley. But there is fresh mint in here as well. I believe, yep, fresh mint. And in the freezer, some organic brown rice and some stew, Nigerian stew, without meat, but it's got spinach inside there. Some Scotch bonnets here, and some organic dark chocolate. It'll probably be here
next year because I rarely eat chocolates, but if I do, it's going to be organic and dark. And that's it for the contents of my fridge. Usually I would have organic eggs in there, but difficult to source organic eggs.
Vitamin D is sourced from the sun, organic eggs and fatty fish. Now I'm going to show you how to make some delicious green tea, cinnamon, fresh mint and ginger tea. So I took quite a generous lump of ginger and I'm just cutting it. It was about the size of this, and I've cut it into small pieces, and that's so that all the flavour can come out when it's actually got hot water on it. Boiling water rather. And now I'm going to add that to the flask. Lovely antibacterial, blood circulating, brain enhancing and ginger. So good for the skin as well. Now the water has finally boiled and I'm going to pour it on top of all our lovely ingredients, which was the green tea, the ginger, the cinnamon and the fresh mint. So you're going to pour until the water reaches almost the complete top of the flask. And then you're going to close the flask. Okay guys, so it hasn't been quite 15 or 20 minutes yet, but I think 10 minutes is enough. So let's have a taste of this tea. And it's quite hot, so I'm going to taste it with a spoon. Absolutely delicious. And the smell is delicious too. Wow, that's hot. And the cinnamon, the sweetness of the cinnamon is coming through so much so that I don't even need to add any honey. Sometimes cinnamon can be sweet or not so sweet. When it's not so sweet, I normally add a bit of honey. But before I add the honey, I do wait till the tea has cooled down significantly so that the honey doesn't become toxic. Absolutely delicious. I'm gonna have one more taste. Okay. Well, thanks for being with me today. Sadly, that's all we've got time for this week on Yohmi's Kitchen. Next week, we'll be looking at the importance of fasting. And just before we go, I'd like to mention that exercise, of course, also encourages the production of healthy red blood cells. So until next week, be cool, be good, and just eat yourself cool. Bye.